this is Wendy with Wendy's Dallas Kitchen. It's great to be with you again. I decided to feature my oatmeal walnut date cookies for you, and I hope that you give them a try because they're honestly my favorite cookie. I've always loved these, and they're pretty healthy because I use real butter, and also there's oatmeal, dates, walnuts, which are great omegas for you with the walnuts. And date is a great source of fiber. So I really hope you give them a try. And before I get started, I wanted to also let you know that I use pitted fresh medjool dates. So the reason I'm pointing this out is the fresh medjool dates, they're a softer date, so they're chewier, they're really nice in a cookie. Because they're not hard. You don't want a date that's hard on the outside at all. So these are the softest, and they're actually the best dates. You want pitted so that you can just slice them. Okay, so let's get started. We start out with 1 stick and 6 tablespoons of butter. So I've put 1 stick in already, and then I'll take the other stick, and you just cut 2 tablespoons off of the second stick. And then you can set that aside. I always like to wrap these in plastic when I don't use a portion of the butter, and then I use that the next time I make muffins or something like that where I have to grease a pan with butter. It comes out perfect to use for that. Or if you're making pancakes, you can always use that on your pancakes. So that's 1 stick and 6 tablespoons of butter. And then you want to put your sugar in with that. We use light brown sugar. And it's very important to use light brown sugar. You don't want to use dark brown sugar. There is a big difference when you're baking. So light brown sugar, and that's 3/4 of a cup. Okay, so, and I said this before, I'll say it again just as a reminder. You always want to be very precise with your ingredients when you're baking. It's definitely not something that you can kind of get close enough and that things will work out okay. They actually won't with baking, I can guarantee that, so you want to be very precise. So that's your brown sugar. And then we will put granulated sugar. I like to keep mine in a glass container. And I like to use organic sugars because of the pesticides that they use in cane fields, so that's very important. You want a half a cup of granulated sugar. And again, if you can, use the organic. Okay, half a cup. All right, and then you want to go ahead and cream the sugar and the butter together. Great. Then you want to add your 2 eggs. I like to use organic eggs. You don't have to, but I think it's better for you to use organic eggs if you can. So 2 eggs. Okay, and you always want to wash your hands after handling an egg, raw egg. Okay, and then next we will put 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I like to use Madagascar vanilla. You don't have to, but all that I would suggest is if you don't have Madagascar vanilla, which I do like, it's pure vanilla extract. So no matter what you use, make sure it's pure vanilla extract. And I use actually 1 teaspoon and then 1/4 of a teaspoon. So 1 and 1/4. I like that little extra bit of vanilla in my cookies. Okay, and then you cream that together. Okay, and when you're baking, what you want to do is, after you have mixed, creamed together the ingredients, these wet ingredients I call them, then you need to scrape down the sides of your mixer or your bowl and make sure that you scrape down the sides so that everything gets really well incorporated. You want it mixed very well together before you put the dry ingredients in. Always oatmeal cookies were my favorite cookie, even if nothing else was in it, just oatmeal. So growing up, my mom would make chocolate chip cookies that were, I'm sure, amazing. But her oatmeal cookies were amazing, and it was funny because that was always the cookie my dad and I would eat. And when she would make those, I would definitely eat them. I love chocolate chip cookies too now, but when I was a kid, it was the oatmeal cookie. So you couldn't keep me away from those. I was a kid either. So you want that kind of whipped together. So you want it to be really nicely whipped together. And then you put 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. So now we're starting with the dry ingredients. Okay, so this is King Arthur flour. I really love King Arthur flour. I use Whole Foods flour as well because I like it too, but the King Arthur is, it's also organic, but it's a very good flour to use. Okay, so we have the flour, and then we want to add, my recipe, 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Very important so your cookies can rise. And that's 1 teaspoon. And then put a teaspoon of kosher salt. I always use kosher. So put 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. Very important. And I like to use a teaspoon. If you have someone in your family that is supposed to avoid salt, maybe they're on a special diet or they are maybe have high blood pressure or some reason that they retain water, then you want to, maybe you can use a half a teaspoon of salt, or you can actually eliminate the salt, and it really isn't going to ruin the overall taste of the cookie. Will be a little different. Obviously the salt is a nice flavor in the cookie with the sweet. It's great together, but if there's a health reason, certainly you can go without it or reduce it. So 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Of course, if you like cinnamon, you could maybe do a teaspoon or 1/4. I wouldn't go over that because then you'll overpower the, you'll have too much cinnamon flavor in the cookie. So we have our flour, baking soda, cinnamon, and salt. And then you want to mix that together now. That's your dry ingredients, aside from the oatmeal. And turn your mixer on kind of slow when you put the flour in, the dry ingredients. You really should make sure that that's mixing in gradually so you don't have the flour go all over. You've probably had that happen before if you're like me. But mix that really well together. On an electric mixer, it just needs just about 2 minutes. And then, just as we did with the wet ingredients, just scrape the sides and just make sure everything is really well incorporated. But when you try these, you will think they are amazing. So if you don't like, say that you don't like dates, you can leave those out. If you don't like walnuts, you can leave them out. It's a great combination, but everyone has their preferences. I know some people who like raisins a lot in an oatmeal cookie, so they'll make this recipe, and if you want to add raisins, then add 1 cup of raisins is what I would do to the recipe. You could, of course, always do walnut raisin. I mean, it's very versatile. You can do any of the above. Okay, so now we have oatmeal. So we put old-fashioned oats. What I like to do is there's a total of 3 cups that you put in all together of your oats. But I do 1.5 cups of old-fashioned, 1.5 cups of old-fashioned oats, and then I do 1.5 cups of quick oats. And the reason for that is, as you know, a whole oat is obviously a coarser, larger oat flake, and the quick oats are finer and smaller. So it's a nice combination to do it that way. So you're getting, you're kind of getting a little of both, and your cookie will come out nicer. It'll be a really nice texture with that. I know most people just use actually the old-fashioned oats. And if you use just the quick oats, then it's too fine. You don't get any of the wholer oats, like the bigger pieces. So mix that together gradually. While that's mixing, then I would suggest 8. I use 8 dates. There are these medjool dates, fresh dates. Use 8 of those, and then so take them and slice them. Okay, I'll move this out of the way so you can see. So take those and slice them lengthwise and then across. All right, and then okay. And then I sliced the rest of them already. So these are your dates. Now, put in your dates. That's 8 sliced pitted medjool dates. And then scrape the sides in your mixer. And then you don't want to mix these too fast, okay, with the dates in there. You want the dates to stay kind of whole pieces, right? So you just gently, just gradually like this. But I suggest this because we use our hands to mix in the walnuts next, but the walnuts, they don't tend to stick together, right? Walnuts don't stick together like a date does. So a date is stickier and it can stick together, and you can end up with a large, one big chunk of dates in a cookie rather than smaller pieces. So mix that together. Perfect. So then, now we're ready to add the dates. So take your batter out off the mixer, then you'll take it, and what you'll do is you will take your chopped walnuts. You want to use chopped walnuts. Take a glass that's sturdy on the bottom. You don't want a fine, thin glass because you don't want it to break while you're doing this. But take your glass and just kind of make the chopped walnuts into even smaller pieces, basically is what you're doing. A little bit. That's not really critical, but I suggest it. It'll turn out nicer. So you want 1 cup. 1 cup of chopped walnuts. Okay, great. Then, this is the part that I recommend that you, okay, excuse me, I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. And then you go in and you mix this with your hands so that you make sure that you get the walnuts really mixed in nicely and just everything mixed in nicely. So wash your hands, make sure, and then you're going to mix this together. Roll up your sleeves. So, okay. This is a favorite though. Like I said, it's my favorite cookie, but it's everyone I've made these for through the years, it's been a favorite. So really, I think you should try it. So mix this together really nicely. Okay. And as I said, you could add raisins if you're a raisin fan. But these are fantastic. So you preheat your oven before we started to 350. So you'll bake these at 350. And also you take your butter out of the refrigerator about 2 hours before you're planning to make your cookies. So they get to room temperature natural. You have to make sure you do that so that the butter is nice and soft and it mixes in really well with the other ingredients. So you mix that together really well, and then I am a stickler for not using anything like a spoon or a like an ice cream scooper or anything like that. I don't use those to make my cookies, and I'm often asked, actually pretty much every time I take cookies somewhere or someone comes over and has my cookies, they ask how they end up in perfect little round balls, round shapes. And the trick to that, or the tip for that, is that I hand roll them. So after you mix it all together, take your dough, and with oatmeal cookies, you actually want about a little bit larger. You want about the size of a golf ball, maybe just a tiny bit larger. So tiny bit larger than a golf ball size cookie that you form into a nice ball. You roll it perfectly round, and you set that on your cookie sheet. And you bake it at 350 for about 10 minutes. If you have a really strong oven, you might check them. 10 minutes should be good. You might need an extra minute or two, but one thing I always warn against with a cookie is, any cookies, is not to overbake them. So make sure that's really critical, and they'll turn out very chewy and delicious. So I think you'll really love these. I hope you give them a try. And as always, I will be posting this on my YouTube channel as well as Facebook, and I will also take pictures of the finished product and share that along with my recipe on Facebook as well. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your weekend. Thank you.